Okay. Hello, my dears. I am here. I am happening. I am still Tad. Nothing I can do about that. And welcome. Nice to have you here. I'm going to be reading. Let me articulate myself a little bit. I am going to be reading until approximately 8. So since it is now 7, that is about an hour just for anybody who might be showing up for the first time. What do I have to tell you about? I kind of gave a summation of my very nice last couple of weeks. I missed you guys the week before last, or week before this, because I took some time off with the idea of trying to arrange a birthday get together. As I detailed last night, of course, that was totally futile, and none of my kids could get it together so that we could all manage it at the same time. So I took the week off of reading for nothing. But on the other hand, we did manage to get together this weekend, and had it done far enough ahead of time, I didn't have to cancel anything in terms of reading. So here I am. Also, here's an exciting announcement. No, not really. Some of you may have noticed that, or remember that I had my light just go out, my whatever you call it, the light that goes with the, with the camera and all that stuff, just quit on me a couple of weeks back. So I had to buy a new one. In the process of setting it up, I managed to, I've got so many wires on this desk, I managed to pull the entire thing down on myself and also managed to this is several days ago. So managed to bruise myself on the nose and knock a hole in my head as well. But it all worked, and I now have the facility. First of all, I don't have to recharge it each time because it just plugs directly into a USB port. Yeah, into well, anyway, it goes from the USB port to power. But I also can change the color a little bit. So this is what I'm using, but just in case, here's probably this, or even more so, this one is basically what I'll probably look like in the medical examiner's office after I get hit by a bus and they are doing an autopsy on me. No color whatsoever. And there's my Mar-a-Lago tanning cream. That kind of brings it up nice and yellow orange. And as I said, that's the one I'm settling on. So exciting, exciting. The world is full of possibilities as long as you keep buying products, new products. Anyway, but at least the light now works, and I have a light, and I hope I won't disappear in the middle of a reading. Especially the middle of the night readings, it's not so bad during the daytime because there's ambient light. But who cares? What am I babbling about? Just babbling. Anyway, so what else to say? Had a very nice time yesterday. We went to a lovely Brazilian restaurant near where we live. I like Brazilian food, but we chose it specifically because it had an outdoor patio and we could make a reservation there. Because rather than leave one of the family members home or leave both dogs alone together, which we haven't done yet because we're kind of easing into all this stuff gradually. They're getting along very well under the circumstances, but they are still not buddies. And Lemon also, when alone, tends to chew things. So I decided, it would be less stressful for me and would make for a very nice birthday dinner. Let's find somewhere we can take the dogs with us. And although that will be a hassle, it will not be the hassle of worrying about what the hell they're doing while we're gone. So we did. And except for a certain amount of leash tangling and leg tangling and tripping and pulling chairs away from us and stuff like that as they were kind of milling around, the two dogs, trying to get comfortable and trying to figure out why they were now allowed to be out with us on something other than an ordinary walk. We had done one trial run with them, just Deb and I, before, so we knew that at least that they wouldn't totally freak out. And I think they quite enjoyed it. And we enjoyed it because, as I said, I didn't have to worry. And although worrying is what I do best, it's not necessarily something that I like the most to do. So that's that bit of information. What else? Deborah's going out of town. Deborah's going to the UK to go see her beloved family and some friends. Not that the friends are not beloved, but I'm just separating. Obviously, she very much wants to see her family, which, because we haven't been able to visit them, well, only once in the last few years, and that was almost a year ago. So anyway, so Deb is out of town. I will be dog sitting and working. Fortunately, I have a manuscript that just needs my attention and will keep me very much involved. And so that's what's going on there. So I'm not looking forward, of course, to Deb being gone, and I will miss her greatly. But on the other hand, I'm not a huge amount of fun at the moment anyway, because I'm spending most of my time down here in the basement with the wretched cats working on my book. So there we go. I think that is a summation of what's been going on. I had a very nice birthday, both on the actual birthday last week and the dinner with kids and their various partners last night. Lovely time, nice food, dogs, only minimally disturbing our peace. And they got a few treats too. I think they had a few pieces of bread and French fries slipped to them during the course of the evening. So there we are. That's kind of up to date on what's going on. And I'm going to start reading in a minute, but first I'm going to check in case anybody has showed up and said hello. Let's see what we got. Tim is here. Tim Speckens. Hello. Mr. Mark Craigbaum. One of the few people who's been on the internet as long as I have. Mark and I started out way back when. I can't remember if it was Genie first or CompuServe. I think it was Genie first on the Genie Science Fiction Roundtable. Way back when. Kristen is here also. Hello, Kristen. That's Kristen Rule, of course, a very regular guest and friend. Emily Bell. Hello, Emily. Good to have you. Susan Shamblin is here. Mark Gamble, who we got to see on Friday and had a lovely time with. Excellent, excellent value as company, and we had a lovely time. Barb Ann is here. Hello. Tracy McClatchy, Kelly Kenrick, and Claudia War, all very much welcome. Isaac Tim, of course, as always, Joanna McCallum, Mark Marino, and Christy Sanders. So those are the people who have checked in and commented so far, mostly saying, God, is he ever going to stop talking? And the answer is no, not as long as I'm alive. Not until I wind up on the, on the aforementioned slab. There I am. On the slab. No, I will never stop talking because that's what I do. Talk, write, tell stories. What can I tell you? I've been that way since I was little. I've been that way since I first learned in kindergarten that if I could stand up in front of the class and give the names of all the major dinosaurs or, all the planets in the solar system, well, Pluto, poor Pluto. Pluto was still a planet back in those days. Anyway, I learned a long time ago that if I could stand up in front of people and spout off about things, I was a very happy man. I realized later in life I should have gone into doing television talk shows or something. But I went for the next best thing, which is I realized that if I put these things down in books, not only am I going to reach even more people with my blather, but that possibly some of them will still be around after I shuffle off the mortal coil, which I hope will not be any time in the near future. And I'm certainly not dropping a veiled reference to any health issues or anything. As far as I know, I'm going to be around for long enough to make everybody sorry. So that's where we are. So with all of that said, and with a slightly smaller quantity of babblage than usual, I am going to return to the book as we are now getting into the closing. What is it, about the last quarter? Yeah, the last quarter of the book. It says at the bottom of my page here that we have done 75% of it. So what was going on last we spoke? Bobby was on trial. He somehow, Anaita, during the time that she, when she defeated him at the museum and kind of grabbed his mind and messed around with it, which at the time Bobby didn't understand, but once he was in the hands of the heavenly authorities and was put on trial and accused basically of being one of the people behind the Third Way, which whatever other things, as Bobby himself pointed out, whatever other things he could be accused of justifiably, and there were many, that was not one of them. And when he tried to say, hey, look, basically this has all been Anaita's thing, he realized that not only could he not mention her name, there was some kind of block had been put in his brain, essentially, or his mind, I guess, since he was unbodied, where he could not even talk about any of the things she was involved in. So essentially, he was left, unable to defend himself against outright lies. And he played the only card he had left, which is that he said if they would hold Judgment in suspension and let him go, he could turn over all the people in the third way, including his friend Sam, to the authorities, to the Ephorate and heaven in general. And so they let him go, and he's been running around doing things since then, including getting ready to send the surviving Amazon, Oksana, out of town to get her out of the way, out of danger's way. And then he told Sam that he wanted to have a meeting with him, and Sam showed up, and Bobby said, I think it may be time for me to come to your third way, your place, which they call Kainos. And so that's what they're sitting around talking about. And Bobby can't help noticing Sam is a little strange, although Sam doesn't seem to know, doesn't seem to know what happened in the trial. So anyway, so Sam is telling him that he's run into, that he began to realize that Bobby was right about Anaita when various things started happening there, including the operation kind of being halted without explanation, and various of the Magians, which are the group that was putting together the third way, of which Sam was a part, had been essentially off on missions, but when people came in contact with him, when the people from Kainos finally came in contact with them, they had been essentially mind wiped. I'll start with Sam explaining that. Bobby says, wiped? Yeah, like what you said happened to Walter Sanders. She had no memory of the third way or anything. So we began to wonder which way the wind was blowing. Then you gave me your big speech, and it made so much sense that I didn't want to hear it. But I couldn't unhear it afterward. I started thinking things over, putting a few questions to some of the other Magians, and it didn't take very long until I could make sense of a lot of shit that hadn't been making sense before that. It's a long, boring list. The whole thing sucks. And it still doesn't make any sense. What did she want if she didn't believe in the third way? For a moment, Sam looked angry again. Then the expression settled into something sadder and more resigned. Maybe she did, at least to begin with. Fuck, who knows, B? I can't spend any more time on the whys and why nots. He shook his head as the food arrived. So, what next? You mean, what are we going to do to protect ourselves? I paused, with a whole sausage impaled on my fork like a harpooned pilot whale. I wish I knew. I mean, I have a couple of ideas I wanted to bounce off you. Oh, yeah, you are definitely the idea man. The remark sounded a bit strained. Go ahead. So I told him what was in my head, or at least part of it, as well as some of the ideas I was considering. He listened, asking questions from time to time, and made a few suggestions that made me look at some of the problems from different angles. It was pretty much what I hoped for, and it's one of the things about Sam that I've always valued. He didn't take things for granted. If you said, I've got a plan that will make us rich, he'd probably ask you, do we really want to be rich? And he'd be right to ask. That was something you needed to know before you started. After about a half an hour and 3 or 4 cups of coffee each, we had a few preliminary ideas scraped together into something that, while not yet deserving the name plan, or even desperate stopgap measure, at least gave me a starting point and a foundation for more thinking. I paid the bill while Sam used the restroom. Then we walked outside. The wind had stiffened a bit, and the skies were cloudy. Christmas decorations swung on the wires overhead like hardy winter blossoms. How do I get to Kainos? I asked. Depends, he said. How much notice can you give me? Who knows? Maybe none. I may have heaven and hell both on my backside when the moment comes. I sure don't want to have to leave a note and arrange a rendezvous like this time. Well, I could just stand there for days and days waiting for you to be ready. That had been more than just grumpy. What's up with you? Nothing. Bad week. He scowled. Look, I'll get back to you on how you can cross over. I have a few things to do while I'm on this side. I'll call you before I go. Every phone I have is tapped, Sam. Then I'll be sure to keep it top secret and hush hush. I'll think of something, don't worry. He turned and started in the opposite direction from Mike's corner pocket, which was a relief. From his weird mood, I'd been afraid he might have been falling off the wagon or thinking about it. Oh, and thanks for breakfast, he called back over his shoulder. The landline rang a little before 2 a.m. I'd fallen asleep on the couch, so it took me a minute to get myself oriented. Oksana was watching some movie on television, her suitcase packed and sitting on the carpet beside her as it had been for hours. She was still pissed at me and had hardly said a word all evening. She was obviously not going to answer the phone. I crawled toward the desk and picked it up. At first, all I could hear was a lot of dull roaring, like I was holding a big seashell to my ear. Then I heard someone's voice, although it wasn't talking to me. Sam? I asked. Yeah? What's up? Where are you? Something was definitely weird, but it took me a moment to figure out it wasn't the connection. Just been thinking, he said. I can hardly hear you. Did you say thinking? And I wanted to say something. There was a long pause. Tell you something. My heart was icing up. I knew this Sam. I hadn't spoken to him in a long time, but I definitely recognized him. Are you okay? Fine. With some friends. Say hello, friends. Somebody laughed in the background, and somebody else shouted something I couldn't hear. Country western music was playing far back there somewhere. Oh, shit, not now, was my primary thought. It was pretty clear that Sam had fallen off the wagon and fallen hard. Do you want me to come pick you up? I asked. You need a ride? Fuck no. Ride? I got wings, man. Magical angel wings, remember? No, I just called to tell you something, man, because, I was thinking today that I needed to tell you about some shit, some important shit. And I wanted to. I really, really wanted to, but then I kept thinking, why should I tell that motherfucker anything when he sold me out? Ice. Ice in my chest, so cold it burned. Sam, I didn't. Get fucked, Bobby. Do you think I don't know anything? You don't think I have any friends except you? No friends except you? So I wouldn't know you totally sold me out? I didn't intend to actually do it, Sam. You have to believe that. I had to offer them something so they let me go. Shit, they were just about to pass judgment on me. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get it. Completely. You weren't really going to do it. That's why you didn't even tell me. For a moment, his voice threatened to break. Didn't even tell me. Sam, I would have, but we got talking about all that other stuff. And, I said I'd get back to you about how to get to my place when they come for your lying ass. And so I'm getting back at you. He laughed like something badly broken. No, getting back to you. Sorry. So when you need to come along to my place, when you really need to, you just take a flying fuck at the moon. Okay? Okay? That'll do it, baby. That'll do it. Then there was nothing on the other end of the phone at all. No people talking and laughing, no country western music, and no Sam. Chapter 39. Narwhals and Empanadas. I couldn't get back to sleep, of course. I lay on top of the blankets on the couch for about 3 hours, feeling like a couple of unpleasant animals were fighting to the death inside my stomach. At some point, Oksana had given up on television and sloped off to the bedroom, but I hadn't even noticed. Finally, I couldn't stand it any longer. I got up, poured myself a drink, with full awareness of the irony, and called the only number I had for Sam. His message was the same. Sam, growling in his best Robert Mitchum voice, "Go ahead, arouse my interest." "Look, man, I'm not even sure you're going to hear this," I said to his voicemail. "I hope you're in a motel somewhere and that you made some sleeping arrangements before you started your evening's adventure. First off, don't be a fucking idiot. Whatever you think of me, it's not worth what you just did to yourself. But it's done, so now you have to start over, that's all. You fell off the wagon before. Remember that thing with the kids who died in a fire? Man, I thought you were going to drink another body to death in a single week that time. Didn't help them, though, and it didn't help you. And you puked all over my only suit 3 different times. And here's another thing. Don't bullshit yourself. You're angry at me because I wasn't a very good friend. And you're right, but not because you really believe I was going to turn you over to the big happiness machine. Because if you think I was going to hand over the guy who let himself burn to death to show me not to be afraid, you still remember that, don't you? Even with a nasty-ass hangover and a gut full of angry feelings, you remember that, right? If you think that I was really going to do that to you, that's some kind of weird self-hatred trip. And, okay, yes, a lot of this was my fault. I was scared to say anything because it does look bad and it made me feel shitty even pretending. It does look like I was going to sell you out. I was embarrassed, but I never thought you'd actually believe it. I didn't say anything because it felt to me like I hadn't stuck up for you in front of our bosses. Ex-bosses, I guess. Okay, maybe it was also because I didn't know how you'd take it. I don't really know how to deal with a world where I'm not sure what my friend Sam is thinking. You spooked me bad by not telling me about the whole third way thing, and I've never quite got over it. It wasn't because you kept it from me. I can understand that. We have freaky jobs, and you have to be careful, and other people were counting on you. But it spooked me because I never thought you'd get so serious about anything that didn't automatically include you and me staying friends. Yeah, I know, I sound like a wife or something. Live with it. You were knee-deep in your future happiness while I was still home doing the dishes. Fuck, I don't know. Make your own metaphor. I haven't slept all night. Jesus, I thought, is this thing even recording all this shit? What if it cut off 5 minutes ago? Anyway, that's really all I wanted to say. When you hear this, I hope you're already sobered up. And if you still hate my guts, well, that's just something I'll have to deal with. But don't ever try to convince yourself that I was really going to sell you down the river, because that wasn't going to happen. Couldn't happen. I was a prisoner of war, and I said and did what I had to do to survive. And that's all. You're my best friend. I love you, man, even when you call me in the middle of the night to tell me I'm a traitor and I should fuck off and die. Because that's how it works. I put the phone down then. I finally managed to get a couple of hours of sleep. San Judas International was built south of the city on reclaimed tidelands in what was, at the time, a largely unused portion of southern Sunnyvale. before Sunnyvale joined up with Jude, one of those hive of scum and villainy backroom deals that people still swear about. It's on the edge of the bay and only about 25 or 30 miles south of San Francisco's airport. I've always thought it was a bit strange to have three major airports in such a small area as the SF Bay, but if we had more bridges and tunnels and stuff, we probably wouldn't. As it is, the bay keeps everyone separate, and each of the major metroplexes wants their own landing strips. Hey, I wouldn't mind owning my own airport either, but you don't hear me whining about it. Because of the Celtic knot of freeways around the airport itself and the edge of the bay down there, what we could have probably managed in about an hour on bicycles took just as long on a weekday morning in a car. However, I discovered one cool thing about my otherwise stone ugly ride. I could use the cab lanes. I mean, legally, unlike the way I usually did. I'd never had the slightest dealings with LOT, the Spanish airline. I've never had the slightest dealings with LOT, the Polish airline, so I decided to do the advised 3 hours early thing for international flights. But when we got there, it looked like they weren't exactly fitting customers onto the plane with a shoehorn, so instead of Oksana hurrying through security, we found a coffee shop and had a second breakfast. I wasn't that hungry myself, but even in mourning, Oksana was a very healthy young woman. She plowed through pancakes and bacon and toast and jam and a couple of coffees while I nursed a tomato juice and said a silent prayer that the Bloody Mary fairy would appear from nowhere and dump bitters and vodka into it. I could have just ordered a Bloody Mary, sure. That's the great thing about airports. Nobody knows what time zone you're in, so nobody bats an eye when you order booze at 9 in the morning. But for a zillion reasons, I felt like I shouldn't. Magical fairy intervention, however, would have meant it wasn't my fault, see? Give me a break. It had been a long week, a very long week. Oksana was still angry with me, but she had the good grace not to make a big thing of it, so I didn't have to look like some old guy ditching his young girlfriend, or worse, somebody sending his wife by mail back to Mother Russia because he was pissed she had the wrong color hair or something. But, how will I know what you do? She asked. If you die or no? Well, that depends, but since you gave me your address, I can always write to you. Or even email. You guys have email in the Ukraine, right? She gave me that look young women always give embarrassing older men, no matter what we've said or done. Yes, stupid. We have car and email and even airplane. No, you don't, or I wouldn't have to send you out on a Polish carrier. You are headbutt. Once she'd finished eating, we still had a while to go before I could put her through security with good conscience, so we took a last walk around the concourse. San Jude doesn't have quite as many tourist attractions or sports teams as San Francisco, so the gift shops always seem a little impoverished by comparison. We had the Cougars, of course, who had been there forever, but they were a minor league baseball team. We were going to get an NHL franchise next year, and a contest had already been held to pick the name. The winner had been Narwhals, which I wasn't quite sure about, but the shops were already stocking merchandise in the team's projected purple, green, and gold. The stuff with the official logo, a narwhal smashing up through the ice, and the less official stuff, like a cartoon narwhal on a t-shirt I saw that said, "I'm horny, puck me." SJ International's also got the usual airport array of weird local foods. You can mail frozen empanadas to your friends back home in Kansas, and other odd businesses that only grow in airports, like vending machines full of overpriced phone chargers and earbuds and whatnot. Oksana actually bought a couple of these things. I'd given her a few $100 for the road to make sure she could get transportation back to the Scythian camp in the mountains. She and Halina probably would have enjoyed a trip to Bender Electronics or one of the megabox stores, I realize now. I felt bad I hadn't taken them there instead of the gun warehouse and the fucking Fatal Museum. Airports are weird places. Actually, they remind me a little bit of heaven. Not God knows, because they're so lovely, but more because everybody's kind of off on their own little trip, surrounded by their own bubble, like the cheerful but not particularly chatty souls upstairs. I'm sure people meet and make lifetime friends in airports, but I can't imagine it happening to me. Too disconnected, too airport-ish. After we walked in glum silence for a little while, I led Oksana to the security gate and hugged her, then watched until she'd gone all the way through the scanners and out the other side. I wasn't treating her like a child, more like a hardened criminal. If I'd just dropped her off at the airport, she would probably have traded in her ticket, turned right around, and the next thing I heard of her would have been the bombing of some local Iranian community center. She didn't want to hurt any Persians, except the goddess herself, of course, but she really wanted to bring some pain to Anaita. As it was, I wasn't 100% certain she wouldn't sneak out again once I'd left. But short of flying to Kiev with her, I'd done all I could, and I was desperate for some private thinking time. My phone rang on the way back, but I was busy trying not to get crushed between a very large furniture truck and someone entering the bay shore right in front of me at about 30 miles an hour. A couple of miles later, I pulled off the freeway and parked at a gas station to check the message. It was from Sam. You know the expression, death warmed over? He sounded like death had been warmed over until it caught fire and had to be extinguished with a tenderizing mallet. Like a man who'd been gassed in the World War I trenches and had only just learned to talk again. I hate myself, Dollar, more than I hate you. Fuck you and your friendship and good sense and seeing the other side of things. Fuck all of that. You're still a rat bastard. Remember when you ate all my Baja nachos while I was in the restroom that time? Yeah, so fuck yourself. Head for Neverland. Write your name on the mirror in blood. Yes, blood, asshole. Then step through. I'm going to go shoot myself now. I just remembered that the worst part of drinking is the sobering up. Did I tell you already to fuck yourself? I hope so, because my head hurts too much to say it now. And then he'd hung up. Believe it or not, this was a good thing despite the death's door sound effects. This was Sam forgiving me in his own Sam-like way and telling me how to join him in Kainos. Which was good because a plan I'd been thinking about for the last few hours was beginning to take practical shape, and I really did think I was going to need to visit Sam's compromised paradise. The plan was a completely crazy one with almost no chance of working, but time was running out. As far as useful ideas, well, let's just say the new one didn't have much competition. The more I thought about it as I made my way north on the rain-slicked freeway, the more certain I became that I was either a genius or the biggest idiot ever to tape a "Just kill me" sign to his own back. And not only was the idea itself astoundingly dangerous, every step on the way to implementing it was crazy suicidal too. But it was the first decent possibility that had occurred to me since we'd escaped the Stanford Museum, bloodied, beaten, and carrying nothing but the dead body of a young Ukrainian woman. Look, let's be honest. I don't have that many ideas. I don't have any good ones, as Sam would be the first to tell you. But even if you ignore quality, I don't have that many of them. So I wanted to start putting this one together. Unfortunately, I realized as I was passing the first of the San Judas exits, I needed one major component to make it work. And that wasn't going to be easy to get. It would require me striking a bargain with someone who might be even stronger than Anaita, and who had certainly proved that he hated me as much as she did. Yeah, you see where this is going, and yeah, you're right. It was stupid in dozens of different ways. Suicidal, too, but it's not like I had a lot to lose. One way or another, somebody was going to rip my soul out of my body soon, mainly just a question of who and when and how official it would be. So heading for 5 Page Mill to visit Grand Duke Elgor was just giving the executioner a choice of weapons. That doesn't mean I wasn't terrified, of course. Doesn't mean that at all. Chapter 40, Devil You Know. I hadn't been inside Five Page Mill since my first meeting with its owner, which had ended badly, with me being dragged out by the police, but much less badly than it could have, since only a few minutes earlier I had been dangling in the neck grip of a very, very angry archdemon, Eligor the Horseman. And now I was going back. It would have been questionable strategy, even if I hadn't had several encounters with old Eligor since, including a long stint in hell as his prisoner, during which he tortured me continuously for what felt like months, burning me, shredding me, feeding me to things I couldn't even describe, and resurrecting me each time to start over again with something new. So now I was going to visit him again. See what I mean? Would you like yours regular stupid, sir, or extra stupid? But beggars, choosers, blah, blah, blah. I'd gone in stealthy the first time, and it had turned out very badly. Today, I was going to try something different. In fact, the only thing I did by the normal Bobby book was leave my hideous yellow ex-taxicab out on the Camino Real, since I didn't want my current ride to be known to every creature in San Judas with a picture of Satan on its office wall. But once I'd reached the front walkway, I just moseyed inside and went straight to the main reception desk. It was now behind bulletproof glass, which was probably because of me, but that didn't keep the young man behind it from giving me a pleasant smile. "How may I help you?" "I'm here to see Mr. Vald." He gave me the smallest hint of a surprised look, but for frontline office cannon fodder, he coped pretty well. "Let me just check. Do you have an appointment, sir?" "No, I don't think so. But he'll want to see me." "I'm afraid you'll have to arrange it through Mr. Vald's executive assistant." "No, you'll do that for me." I put one of my cards through the slot, the kind that only has a name and a phone number on it. I don't think that number even works anymore. "Tell them it's Bobby Dollar to see Ken Vald. I'll wait right here." And I did. The receptionist's phone conversation, which I had observed from a discreet distance, looked a bit heated. My guess was that the person on the other end had started out, "Who?" and then quickly got to, "What the fuck is he doing here?" When the kid hung up, I strolled forward again. "Shall I go up?" His smile was sickly, but he was still doing his best, bless him. I hoped he was a regular human and didn't know who his boss really was. He seemed like a go-getter. "If you'll just wait a moment, Mr. Dollar, someone will be out to see you." "I'm sure," I said, returning his smile with more confidence than I actually felt. But that's how it works when you're on hell's home ground, even if it's just an embassy on Earth. You have to stay confident, or at least seem that way. You cannot flinch. You definitely do not want to panic, because they really do smell fear. Oh, change. It was a minute at the longest before a dark-haired female security agent appeared out of one of the lobby's interior doors. She was attractive, if you liked faces hard as stone temple carvings, and wore the same black suit as the male agents, but with a button collar and no tie. Her name tag said Kilburn. "Mr. Dollar?" she asked. "Bobby Dollar?" You'd have thought from the way she said it that I'd announced myself as something filthy. "I think you'd better come with me." "I think first you'd better tell me where, Officer Kilburn." I gave her my best array of charm teeth, my friendliest grin. "The last time I was here, I had a bit of misunderstanding with security. I'd hate that to happen again." Zero amusement. Less than that, actually. If a cold fog could reach out from someone and suck the enjoyment out of others, that's what she was emanating. "I'm sure you would, Mr. Dollar. I'm taking you to my supervisor. Come along." She turned and walked back toward the door. She didn't look to see if I was coming and didn't seem to care if I did. I followed her anyway, since that was why I was there. A whole complex of narrow halls and rooms lay hidden behind the lobby wall, almost a second building inside Five Page Mill, like a piece of pipe shoved inside a larger pipe. She led me down a corridor that must have run more or less parallel to the lobby's inner walls, then stopped outside a door no different than half a dozen others we'd passed. She opened it and indicated I should go inside. "Mr. Felderscarp will be with you in a moment." I stepped inside. She closed the door. It was a small, unremarkable office, a desk, chairs on either side of it, no pictures. Just as I'd figured out that Felderscarp must be Fiddlescrape, Elagor's latest demon bodyguard, replacement for the very much unlamented Howling Fell, the door opened again behind me. I turned in time to get hit so hard in the stomach that I thought someone had fired a rocket launcher right into my gut. I slammed back against the wall, and for a second everything went black. Then the little sparkle lights appeared, and I could hear well enough again to detect the sound of someone strangling to death trying to swallow a porcupine. That was me, I realized a couple of seconds later, trying to get some air into my body. Something very large stood over me, flexing giant claws. It seemed to tower yards and yards above me, not possible in that small office. Only as the first of the new oxygen got into my cells and my brain coughed back into more or less working condition did I realize it was only tall Fiddlescrape with his huge fists and his small head, which made my perspective from the floor even stranger. Of course, sheer reflex already had me planning how to bring him down. A kick in the knee, hard as I could, to be followed by crumpling his cantaloupe-sized head with the chair I'd knocked over on my way down. But I reminded myself I wasn't going to let things get out of hand the way I had last time. I did my best to fill my lungs. I wasn't ready to get up yet. "Hello, Fiddlesticks. Nice to see you again. How are the wife and kids?" He just stared at me. What's with the sour expression? Seems to me if I hadn't got Howling Fell killed, you wouldn't have this nice white-collar job. Is it really worse than being back in hell, hacking pieces of petrified shit into smaller pieces, or whatever you used to do? "Why are you here?" "Duh, to see your boss, as I already explained at the front desk. Of my own free will, no socking people in the breadbasket required." His head was certainly strange, almost normal in profile, but too narrow across the front and about 80% of the proper size, although with the right haircut and clothing, he could just pass for a normal human. He didn't really have the right haircut, though. The small span of his face and the slightly outturned eyes made him look more like a horse or a fish than a person. Still, at least he knew how to tie a double Windsor knot. That's kind of a dying art. "Why shouldn't I just beat you to a bloody dead mess right here?" he asked. "First, because it wouldn't be as easy as you think it would. Second, because I'm an angel, so I wouldn't be dead anyway, just waiting, briefly, for a new body, so I could come back and gut you like a largemouth bass." I should have stopped there. Oh, sorry, smallmouth bass in your case. I was lucky that he didn't seem that sensitive about his appearance, but I'd almost sent the whole thing off the rails. "And third," I said quickly, in case he just hadn't figured it out yet, "because I have an offer for your boss that I know he'll want to hear." He looked angry and bewildered, not a good combination on anyone, much worse on him. "What the fuck are you talking about?" "It's not hard, fiddle me this. I want to offer the Grand Duke something. He'll want to know about it. So if you and I get to ripping pieces off each other and he never finds out what it was until it's too late, well, he'll probably send you to Dr. Teddy." This hit home. Dr. Teddy was a hideous little thing that worked for Elagor in his house in hell, inflicting inventive kinds of pain on the Grand Duke's enemies. Fiddlescrape gave me a worried look and stood there for a moment, rubbing his huge hands together. I took the opportunity to lift myself, slowly, from the floor until I was standing. Whatever else happened, he wasn't getting another free shot at me like the first one. He growled at me to stay put, then stepped out of the room again. I heard the door lock with a very definitive click, then heard his steps moving away at the same time as I heard him speak to someone, presumably on a phone. I righted the chair I'd knocked over, sat in it, and calmed my breathing. I can't tell you how badly I'd wanted to put my foot up Fiddlescrape's too tall ass. It's a lot harder being smart than it is being stupid. A minute or two later, he came back. He beckoned and led me out into the hall, then nudged me along it, past another half-dozen unmarked doors, and into what looked like a freight elevator at the end of the corridor. We went up. The stories ticked over until we'd reached the 44th. Then the door opened. "Office is at the end," said Fiddlescrape. "You're not coming with me? What if I start to litter or unreel the fire hose or something?" "Office is at the end," he said, louder this time. "Well, it's been fun," I said as I stepped out. I'd been in this corridor before, knew the dark green carpets and expensive wainscoting. The entrance to Vald's office was at the far end. The door of the elevator hissed shut behind me. Then the lights went out. But I hadn't been hit this time, or if I had, I hadn't noticed it. I was still standing, though, could feel my body, could still hear the elevator murmuring down toward the lower stories, but I couldn't see a damn thing. Until the fire came. Whoosh! Flames all around me, blossoming from the walls, ceiling, and floor like huge wavering flowers. It had to be gas jets. That was all I could figure, but I could already feel the fire licking at my clothes, shriveling my lashes and eyebrows to ash. So I jumped forward into the dark space before me. Whoosh! More flames. What had at first seemed like a built-in crematory just outside the elevator on the executive floor expanded into a cascade of flames that stretched away in front of me, as if the oven had just become a long, fiery tunnel. I couldn't find the elevator now, let alone get back into it, and the skin on my hands and face was beginning to burn. "Eligor," I had just enough time to think, "you are such a shit." Then I began to run, telling myself that it couldn't last any longer than the 20 yards or so down the hall to Eligor's office door. I could barely see the narrowing of the flames ahead of me, but I put my head down and did my best not to bump into any walls or, God forbid, to fall down, because then I'd be roasted like a chicken dinner. The pain had already gone past the point I can describe. Fire had engulfed my clothes and was burning the skin right off my body. The only thing that kept me alive this long was the fact that my body was from the heavenly warehouses. I could feel my eyes glazing, cracking, my lungs smoking as they shriveled into chipotle peppers. Every nerve in my body was giving its death cry, a shrill, continuous screech of pain that felt like it would kill me long before the actual damage did. I ran for what must have been 100 yards without finding anything but more fire. The burning corridor went on and on forever, which meant I wasn't in 5 Page Mill anymore, or even in San Judas, which meant I was in... No, not hell. Not that fast. If Eligor could have managed it so quickly and easily the first time, I never would have survived to be here and now. To be here now. I wasn't in hell. I was stuck in my own mind. Not that it did me any good to know. It took everything I had to ease my crazy dying sprint, because every second that passed meant I could feel the skin and muscles blackening right on my bones. But running wasn't going to do it. I had to find my way out. Physically, I felt pretty sure I was still in the corridor on the 44th floor. I slowed to a walk. It really was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. It went against the desperate dying alarms of every nerve ending I had, against pain like nothing you could understand unless you've been through it. But I had to do it that way. I reached out my hands, putting them right into the jets of flame as I groped along. I was feeling actual walls beneath my touch, while simultaneously feeling the bones of my fingers char and turn into ash and flake away. I don't know why I wasn't screaming like a madman. Maybe I was. At last I felt a bump as I trailed my fingers over a door frame. Fingers that my howling senses told me had already been burned away. It felt like my actual brain was exposed in a scorched skull, and that everything they always said about no nerves in the brain was a horrible fucking lie. I found the doorknob then and turned it before I had time to think about what I was going to do if it wouldn't open. It opened into nothing. Then I was falling through blackness, tumbling, waving my arms and kicking my legs as I plummeted down into depths I couldn't see, couldn't even imagine. For half a second, the air sawing across my exposed bones and meat actually felt like a cooling relief. But then it began to feel like all that raw, bobby area was being sandblasted. This wasn't lost in emptiness blackness. This wasn't floating in nothing blackness. This was a hole that went down so far that I was plummeting like a meteor out of space. I'd plunge forever, burn up, or hit the bottom and burst into a million pieces. I opened my mouth against the shrieking winds of my fall, but almost couldn't make a noise because the breath had been blasted out of me. When I did, it was little more than a squeak. The noise of a mouse dropped out of the space shuttle. "Cute," I said, the words snatched by the uprushing air as they came out of my mouth. "This is cute, Horseman. And so mature." I hit bottom. It wasn't like hitting bottom from high orbit, though. It was more like I did an ordinary pratfall thump onto an expensive office carpet, then lay there gasping. I had fallen out of darkness into cool fluorescent light. Kenneth Vald, 6 feet and something of handsome tanned blonde billionaire, watched me from his office chair. He held up a small object I couldn't quite make out because my brain was still rattling in my skull. "Want a Pez?" he asked. I struggled up onto my knees. The little plastic tower in his hand had the face of Jesus in his death agonies. Eligor thumbed the head back, and a red lozenge of hard candy slid out of the neck like Christ's throat had been slit. I shook my head. The Grand Duke took out the little candy and waved it at me. "You sure?" When I didn't reply, he flicked it with his fingers. It shot at me like a bullet, hissed past so close I could feel the wind, then ricocheted off 4 walls. There may have been a ceiling bounce in there somewhere, and back toward him. Eligor didn't move, just opened his mouth a tiny bit, and the Pez flew in. He crunched it up with gusto. "Yum," he said. "Tastes like daddy issues." I staggered erect, found a chair, and sat down. I didn't speak because I didn't trust myself not to squeal like a wounded pig or simply burst into tears. Eligor hadn't needed to remind me that he could fold me up like human origami and throw me away if he wanted to, but that's the thing about Hell's high rollers. They really enjoy their job. "So what brings you here, Deloriel? I can't say I'm pleased to see you. You weren't thinking of revenge, were you?" The Kenneth Vald face, famous from many newspapers, magazines, and websites about what rich people do, looked almost ordinary. Only the spark of scarlet gleaming deep in his eyes, a tiny reflection of the fiery passage I'd just escaped, made it clear that what was looking out from in there was a lot uglier than the shape it was wearing. I sat slumped in my chair. You probably think I was acting beaten to disarm him. But I wasn't acting. I'd been beaten by Eligor a long time ago. "I've got an offer for you," I said at last. "Are you a gambling man?" He laughed. I mean, he sounded genuinely tickled. "Oh, dearie me, a gambling man. Do you really think the house is going to stake you for another try, Deloriel? What's your idea? Double or nothing to get the Countess back? I thought you'd learned your lesson by now. Since I have everything I wanted from you, I was actually going to leave you alone. at least for a while. But you don't have everything you need, I said. Anaida's got your horn. She can still blow the whistle on you any time. He didn't speak for a moment, but the embers in his eyes flared. Why would you annoy me by reminding me? Because I want to make a bargain with you. Or rather, kind of a wager. Demons love to bet, right? Not interested, little angel, he said, and getting bored now too. Would you like another swim in the eternal fires? I took a breath. I couldn't let him hurry me. I had nothing on my side but whatever calm I could muster, as well as a smidge of stubbornness. And I thought I might know one thing he didn't. No thanks, I told him. Not that it wasn't interesting. It reminded me of when I visited you at Flesh Horse. Ah, he said with a faux wistful smile. Yes, good times, good times. His face went flat again. But I just really enjoy burning the shit out of you. So why shouldn't I start again? Because you haven't even found out what my bargain is? And that you are not the only person interested in getting hold of that horn? Now his eyes narrowed. I felt myself falling toward him, falling into those fires that blazed at the center of each pupil. The falling wasn't real, I told myself, but it was still very, very dangerous. I forced myself back into the present reality. What do you mean? He asked at last. Seatree? I said. Remember him? Fat guy, Prince of Hell, hates you as much as a ham hates Christmas? He's looking for the horn. In fact, he's gone to some impressive lengths to try to obtain it. What the fuck are you talking about? Seatree? That crude, miserable slug wouldn't dare. I suggest you watch this, I said as I took my phone out of my pocket. I clicked on the video of the Black Sun's little seance and set it in front of him. He watched it through to the end, his face getting stonier and stonier. When it was finished, he didn't say a word as I picked up the phone and pocketed it again. Well, I said at last, you going to put me back in the oven? Or do we talk? Now the handsome Kenwald face looked like something stretched over a rack, an uncomfortable fit and a poor disguise for the beast underneath. You have 5 minutes to pitch your so-called bargain, Deloriel, the Grand Duke said. 5 minutes to arouse my interest, or you'll never see sunlight again. And that, I believe, is the end of the chapter. Yes, it is. So we are going to stop there. Next is chapter 41, straight on till morning, but we will save that till next week, since it is now just about 8 o'clock. And by the time I finish my ending babble, it will probably be 8 o'clock. So I hope that we stayed on and broadcasted through the whole thing. Okay. And yes, okay, it looks like we did. So that's all good. So anyway, with that all done and said, and the finish of the book is coming now, and we get into all the complicated doings and happenings there. And of course, I hope it's clear how desperate Bobby Dollar has to be making a deal with Eligor, to go through what he had to go through. So, but that's it for this week. I am going to be back, as far as I know, no reason why not, next week, same times as usual. Until then, my dear friends, please take good care of yourselves. Please take good care of the people that you care about, loved ones and family, and keep an eye out for others that you may not know so well, but who might benefit by a little attention from you, because it's a tough world out there, and we all need to help take care of ourselves and each other. And yeah, that's about it. So again, thank you so much for spending time with me. I always appreciate it. I will be back next week, and look forward to seeing you all then. Until then, peace, be well. Yeah, That'll do it. So arrivederci, ragazzi. See you then.